What's going on, guys? Seth and Chevy here. We just watched episode 2 of Nier Automata, or Automata, however you like to say it. Full spoilers ahead. We're going to talk recap real fast. So essentially in the beginning, we get an explanation on how aliens essentially attacked Earth, sending machines to destroy everything. People fled to the moon, and this is where they eventually created the Yora soldiers, which are androids, to fight the machines and the alien menace for the glory of mankind. The Resistance is on Earth fighting their androids against the robots, and they're at a stalemate as of right now. And yeah, they're just fighting and all that stuff. We get a subplot of a robot that starts taking interest in history and all sorts of stuff, learning things, and eventually starts valuing things other than killing off the Resistance, and starts planting plants everywhere, and other robots start doing the same. They kind of are watching them after a while, and they start taking on this peaceful route for robots. So we get some insight on the Resistance and how they feel neglected down on Earth. They don't get the support that they need. They discuss that there are new Yora soldiers that they've heard about. They just know that they're there to fight and die. They get into a conflict with robots who come over a bridge. They start fighting them. Things are blowing up. They decide to run because there's too many of the robots. And while they're doing that, decide to blow up a bridge to stop their pursuit of them because they don't really have the means to fight them. They're losing people quickly. And back up on the base on the moon. Wait, that's the moon, right? Or no? Where are they at?
It's a orbiting space station.
Yeah. Okay. Orbiting space station. Pretty much 2B and 9S get briefed on that they need to go rendezvous with the Resistance, and that a other android was sent down originally, but they haven't been able to get communication from them in a while. So they're going to go down their rendezvous with the Resistance, and then find out where this other android went. So while the fighting is going on the bridge, their detonator doesn't work for the bombs they've set on the bridge to destroy it, to stop the robots from coming over. Luckily, 9S and 2B show up. They're able to shoot the bridge, blow it up, and drop all the robots. During this time, though, the last peaceful robot is launched down a cliff, and in a sad way looks at his last flower before falling into a hole. During this whole episode, we get these interesting little intermissions where it's kind of talking about, I'm not exactly sure what it's talking about. It almost seems like, what are you gathering from it?
So I'm pretty positive it's the stories that they're reading out of the books.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and so we get like a lot of this vague talking that I'm not exactly sure what it's about, because it's been a while since I played the game.
Say if they're trying to replicate the game too, the game will often do like things that are mostly supposed to be like symbolic of something, and not necessarily supposed to be very literal. So
well, yeah, but it was talking about like almost like robots evolving and their sentience and
yeah, so they handle it very different in the show than doing the game, because this whole episode is very different.
It kind of threw me off.
Yeah,
so I was like, what's going on?
Because in the game, you get moments where like robots are constantly trying to like replicate human behavior, and it's something that's kind of new for them.
Which this episode is covering.
Just in a different way. So yeah, we're seeing a perspective that basically is just a different take on that, because the game kind of just throws you in. Even this whole thing with them meeting the Resistance in the game, you literally get the mission and you go to the Resistance camp. End of story. So this is a very like a more detailed version of those events, basically.
Yeah, they spent a lot of time kind of showing the robots and how they're patrolling around fighting people, and then eventually some of them were like, I'm going to start doing this thing. Yeah. And they even mentioned with the Resistance that that they're noticing the robots are evolving. So, so they meet up with the Resistance. One of the robots is still alive, goes to attack. I think the person's name is Lily, which 2B and 9S is pods are able to shoot it, destroy it, and then Lily like pulled a gun on them. And what am I missing? I feel like I'm missing something here. Oh, it leaves off with that weird vague thing. Or no. It went to the outro with where they talked about removing the I forgot the name of it.
They did the after credits like puppet show basically where they kind of give more detail into the world without having to put it into the show. And one of them was an Easter egg to the game where you uninstall the operating system.
And it'll end the game, yeah. We got the outro sequence as well, which was fine. And yeah, we also saw some bad CGI in this episode. That's fine. I'm just gonna have to accept that.
It.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do we think?
So actually, as you know, someone who knows basically where the story is going, assuming they continue the same exact path that the game does, I actually enjoyed having an episode that had the same story as in the game, just not the same scenes and the way it played out. They're accomplishing the same thing by having their own take on it, and that's hard to do. So good job on that. Not that this was a very deep moment for the game, but like I kind of brought up earlier, at the beginning of the game, a lot of it is like kind of learning what's going on the planet because you're playing from the perspective of your HA units. Specifically, your first time playing is with 2B, and she's a combat unit, so like that's what she knows. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun seeing basically the robots do what they do in the game, just from a more drawn out perspective. I liked seeing them go from the attack mode to the one just finding literature. It was it was a diary, I believe, and like kind of learning how humans were. And for some reason that changed their programming to start acting or being curious. And then they saw the flower had that connective tissue in real life from the literature and just started replicating that behavior.
Yeah, it's like sentience. It's like they're evolving more than just being a program.
Yeah, it's a fake sentience, but it's very convincing. Because even like 9S starts kind of like commenting on it in the beginning of the game, and 2B's like, they're just mimicking it. Like, but it's meant to be creepy, which is something that kind of Nier does anyways. They really want you.
Yeah, but even if they are sentient, she wouldn't admit that anyway, though, because her job's to kill them. So it's not to say it's dehumanizing because they're robots, but like it's to not give them any credit.
Yeah.
We're here to destroy them kind of situation.
Yeah, and it's a funny dynamic, obviously, because the androids are also technically robots, right? They just have an AI instead of a program. Or simple program or whatever. And I have to try to avoid saying too much because like obviously the story gets pretty crazy, but I like the approach they took. I was kind of curious too because I know there's a scene that kind of hinted towards the end where they're all reading and there's the giant ball in the sky. That is done differently in the game, and I imagine they probably didn't do that on purpose because they wanted it to air on television. But yeah, I don't know what else to say in that regard. The 3D for the brief moment where we saw the flight unit again, I really think that was a bad decision, but fortunately, it's fine. I can look past it. It is jarring.
Yeah, most of the show's fine, like the way that they do the animation and everything like that. But yeah, when they bring the CGI out, it's not impressive. But luckily, this isn't a fully CG show, and it's very brief. So I just think it's interesting. They won't just like animate that. They use the 3D models with the animated characters in them, and it's not good looking.
Yeah, especially because I think the 2D looks really good. The drawings are done really well. The scenes are captured very well.
Yeah,
the animation is
it's fine,
above average. Yeah, it's good. And yeah, I like the voice cast. I said this last time. It's going to be a continuing theme for the rest of it. The music's great, but they're taking the music from the game. That soundtrack is amazing.
Yeah, the music is I like this show, but I think the music's adding a lot to it that I don't know if the show would have the same weight to it if it didn't have the same soundtrack, because that soundtrack's just phenomenal. I mean, it's the same story too, but like I could just play the game.
Sure. Well, in all fairness, too, the anime is doing the same thing the game did, which is it's really slow starting.
Yeah.
The game's the same way, though. Like, they really want you to kind of like live in the world for a little bit before they start throwing chaos at you. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it. And this episode has shown me they're not going to just verbatim copy scenes from the game, which makes me more interested in watching it, because now I'm getting a new treat.
I was thinking about that as well in the first episode. I literally, like, even when I was talking to Sarah about it, I was like, I feel like I'm just kind of like watching the game I played. But this episode, I was like watching it, and like I knew where they were going with it, but I was just like, I don't remember this from the game in this way. So it's been a while since I played the game, but like, I was like, I remember, like, you know, there's robots that like act like that and shit, but like this is kind of an interesting way to kind of show them going through that process of going like neutral and then, you know, becoming at least mimicking or trying to be sentient. So,
well, and instead of having like the androids tell you or like question their humanity, we're given scenes for us to question instead. I like that. You do feel bad for the robot, you know? Especially because it's a very like human moment when it's reaching for the flower.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's like really kind of like at the heart, a lot of what like Nier is a lot of like questioning like things. So I like that. So
yeah. Overall, I like this episode. It was cool. I like that they switched it up and changed it in the way that you know, if you have played the game, you're going into it kind of blind. You have, you know, like an idea of where things are going for sure, but the way that they did is different, so it gives us something new to experience, which is dope. The events were cool enough. I don't really watch this show. I mean, we've only seen 2 episodes, but like I'm not really watching the show for like the action set pieces. So far, they've been fine. The first episode with 2B fighting looked good, but like, you know, them shooting the robots and stuff. This is all just story and plot, you know, moving forward. But they're doing it in a really interesting way. I like that they're taking their time to tell this story. They're giving us longer than I thought we would get scenes of like the robots and their experience and how they're, you know, some of them are changing and evolving as other ones are maintaining the you know, go kill all the resistance that they're doing. Some really interesting scenes there. Some sad scenes with the little brother. Robots getting stomped over, and then the big one getting launched off the cliff. You know, something that seems human. There's some humanity to that robot. Getting lost is obviously something to be sad over. Yeah, other than that, the episode doesn't have much story to get from it. It's an event that kind of is explaining the situation and the dynamic between the resistance, the people on the moon, and the Yora soldiers. So this episode kind of serves as like a launching point to move forward in the story, I think. I'm definitely curious how that goes. I'm also curious to see how they handle the story, like you said, with the big thing. The big ball is definitely different than the game. So I'm curious to see how that's going to move forward as well.
Yeah, I feel like they're just going to skip the more like lewd interpretation from the game. But I'm sure the event will play out exactly the same.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I'll be curious to see how they change up anything, because like in this episode, they changed things up. So but otherwise, it was fun. It was cool. Really appreciate the music. And I liked it. Anything else to say?
No, I mean, it's a slowly paced episode, not in a bad way. So, I mean, there really isn't a whole lot to talk about outside what we did. So, hopefully, if I had to guess where the next episode's going, I should be a little more pushing us forward than we are now. This episode was definitely, like you said, just kind of showing off the what's happening on the surface more.
It's establishing the situation that they're getting thrown into and giving us perspective of the people who are in the resistance, which if you play the game, you only kind of find that out through talking to people.
And through multiple playthroughs and stuff. So yeah.
So giving it from their perspective, I thought was interesting. I was like, is this whole episode gonna be about robots and the Resistance and not 2B9S? But they were in it, but it was more so a way for them to come down and start the story forward. So
that's like the mentioning of Jackass, who is an NPC you meet before you go to the desert.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. There's a lot of little fun nods to everything in the game, which I think is cool because the show is definitely set up for anybody who hasn't played the game to understand it, which is super crucial. But but it definitely is nodding constantly to the people who played the game, which I like as well. And I kind of wish, honestly, Hollywood would take a note from, because you can do both.
Yeah.
You don't have to alienate one group. Everybody always makes
this literally that.
Yeah, the whole conversation, I'm not going to get into it, but the whole conversation around like making like, video game or anime adaptations into movies or TV series, and people are like, well, you just can't do it. You have to do this, but like, no. Everything they're doing it just fine, easily. You can. It's the show works for people who play the game and people who haven't. So, yeah,
for sure, I agree with that 100%. Because I mean, even for people who know, they got something different. For people who don't know, it was explained pretty well, or at least like not necessarily explained, but understandable.
They're giving the info you need as much as you need to know as of right now. So,
yeah, it's supposed to be kind of wait and see ish. So.
Yeah, that's something I was kind of trying to say earlier too. Is like you have to play multiple playthroughs to get the full story in the game, and in this, they have to relay as much as they can in a solid playthrough, essentially. Unless halfway through the season they start from a new perspective, but I don't think they're going to do that. So
I actually think it's my biggest curiosity with the show is how they're going to handle telling a story that you have to experience from multiple perspectives in a game. So, and you can do it. I've seen some people be like, oh, you can definitely do it.
They probably just do what they're doing, like in this episode with the Resistance, where we're in their perspective. Like when other characters, if there are any, show up, it might start from their perspective or like a flashback or something. So
but that question before the show coming out was a pretty valid question to have, though, because the game's not a very simple like point A to point B story. It's
no, in fact, the second playthrough is where things start kind of unfolding more.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember being the first playthrough, I was like, that was cool. I don't know if I know everything for sure, but then you play the second one and it gives starts filling in some gaps, and then on the third playthrough, it gives you more information. So and that's kind of the beauty of that game and the way it's set up to unravel more and more as you play. It's supposed to be confusing and mysterious at first until you start unraveling, but I don't know if that would work in this medium. So they got to do it the way you tell stories in a series. So
Yep, I'm looking forward to seeing how they handle because at this point forward it should start doing and introducing characters that, and I don't want to say too much because obviously this is for anime onlys as well.
Yeah, and
that'll advance the plot. I'll just say it worked that way. So.
In most episodes when we watch something, I'm like asking the people in chat not to spoil it for us, and in this I'm like I'm just going to talk about what I saw in the episode, because I know stuff that happens later. So
overall I think I enjoyed this episode though more than the first one, just because it was different.
The first one felt verbatim.
Yes. Which was fun and a good way to start the show, but I am glad they are willing to put their own spin on it. As long as it stays, like I said, this is very respectful. I like the way they handled it. So.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, let us know in the comments what you guys think of episode 2 of Nier Automata, and did you like it, did you not like it? If you didn't like it, what didn't you like about it? If you liked it, what did you like about it? And if you've played the game, how do you think they're handling this so far? How do you think what do you think of how they changed it up? And is there anything you're hoping for as this show goes on? Is there perspective changes you'd like to see? Would you like to see, this is coming from, of course, if you've played the game, you want to see them start from a different perspective, or do you want halfway through to be a different playthrough? And I guess I'll stop from there because I don't want to give too much to the people who haven't played the game. And yeah, let us know what you think. I've been Seth. This has been Chevy. Until the next episode, we'll talk to you guys later.